I'm Liz Baxter. I'm the CEO here at Northsound ACH. And since we are a small group and like half these folks are our team, I wonder if like the folks who aren't our team, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourselves, and I may just like scroll through the list. So Alex, would you mind starting?
Sure. Alex Perez, project manager at Northwest Agricultural Business Center, known as NABC.
Nice to see you.
Yeah.
Carolyn?
Hello, I'm Carolyn Roy. I'm with Interfaith Coalition of Whatcom County, and we've been talking with Gabriella and Lisa a little bit about coordinating some services, and so I thought I'd hop on.
That is so awesome. Nice to see you. Eva.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Eva, and I am working as a food access specialist here in Whatcom County and also in Skagit. I'm based in Bellingham, specifically in Bellingham Food Bank, and I'm working with them. So it's my very first meeting. It's so nice to meet you all, and I'm here to help the community. So if you have any question, you can reach me with my email or with Max. Thank you.
Well, and I may just circle to the rest of your colleagues. So Mike, do you want to go?
Yeah, sure. Nice to be here. My name is Mike Cohen. I'm director of the Bellingham Food Bank. Thank you.
Nice to see you. Max?
Hi, everyone. Excited to see some of you even later today, and thrilled to be on this meeting or on this call. I manage emerging projects at Bellingham Food Bank and also our agricultural programs.
Great. How about Juan?
Hi, good afternoon to all. Juan Morales on behalf of the NABC, alongside with Alex Perez. Some of the faces here are pretty familiar, so hello. And to those that are not, nice to meet you all. Looking forward to learning more about this group. Thank you.
I'm looking forward to seeing people in 3D again. So, you know, starting to feel that a little bit. Let's see, Mario.
Hello, everyone. Mario Bañuelos, Deputy Director of Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion with Empower Next Generations. It's my first time being here and happy to be here.
That's fantastic. I appreciate you being here. Did I get Lauren or did I miss Lauren?
I think Lauren is having a mic issue, so Lauren's been posting in the chat.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, if somebody could pay attention to the chat, I'd really appreciate it. Okay, and then we've got like some folks from our team, and as we describe the cohorts, most of them playing bits of leadership roles as we walk through. So Xenia, would you mind starting?
No, not at all. Hi, everyone. My name is Xenia Junkier. I use she and her pronouns. I'm the Population Health Director at Northsound ACH. Been here about 3 or so months. I'm also the lead for the equity cohort. And we'll pass it over to Nika.
Hello, my name is Nika Osteen. I use she, her pronouns. I'm a senior program manager at Northsound and lead the practice transformation cohort. I will go to Rocio.
Good afternoon, buenas tardes. Rocio Castillo Fall. I use she and her pronouns. I'm the Director of Community Engagement and Health Promotion here at Northsound. And I'm also the lead of the Emerging Focus Area cohort. Thank you. And I'll pass it to who is Rajdeep.
Hello, my name is Rajdeep Atwal. I am a senior program manager here at Northsound ACH, and I am the lead for the care coordination cohort. I'm very excited to be here.
All right, how about Michaela, then Heather?
Hello, my name is Michaela Bendiola. I use she, her pronouns. I'm the Tribal and Community Liaison for Northsound ACH, and I'm also staff support on the Equity cohort and the Emerging Focus Areas cohort. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Heather McGinnis, and I am Public Health and Government Liaison here at North Sound ACH, and I am the cohort lead for the Vital Conditions cohort.
All right, I think we'll close this up with Meg and then Natalie.
Yeah, hi, Meg Stevenson, and I'm the communication manager at North Sound.
Hello, everyone. Natalie Esparza. I use she, they pronouns, and I am a communications coordinator here at North Sound ACH.
Great. Thank you all so much. And, you know, you all said like this is your first meeting. Well, this is our first time kind of opening the doors to new partners coming in to the network. So like any questions are great questions because they're probably going to help us as much as they will help you understand what we're doing. And so I think what I might do is just as briefly as I can walk through a set of slides, and then really the rest of the time is just for you to ask questions about, you know, what the heck are we trying to do and accomplish and all of those things. But it was really nice just to hear who you are, and at some point I would love to know like what you're hoping to see happen as we move forward. Okie dokie. So hopefully you can see a set of slides here. And so we are launching something called the Collaborative Action Network, and it is an evolution for North Sound ACH. We were founded by a group of leaders from the 5 counties, and our region is everything north of King County. So Island, San Juan, Sonoma, Skagit, and Whatcom counties. And really, it was a group of leaders, including representatives from all 8 of the tribes from this region, who were trying to have a table that was looking not so much at healthcare, but looking at community health and population health. And they actually were looking 5, 10, 20 years out. How do we work collaboratively to have an impact? Really anchored around kind of learning from the tribes, being focused on equity. And so we started in this very broad kind of swath place. And then in early 2017, the state of Washington got a Medicaid waiver, which brought significant investment to the region, but it narrowed the scope a bit to just focusing on people who are eligible for Medicaid. And so it was interesting for me because I was hired during that period of time with a very broad vision. And part of what drew me here was being anchored around advancing equity and addressing some of the systemic and structural barriers, you know, that kind of perpetuate some of the historic racism and just ways that we keep people out from the things that they need. And within like 3 months, we had this focus on Medicaid. And so for some reason, North Sound has been able to not get consumed in the Medicaid box, but we just keep trying to figure out how do we leverage the resources we have from Medicaid to continue this kind of broad vision. And what the board had as its mission in those early days was that we were focused on improving health of the people who live in these 5 counties. And so one of the very early things that we did was we're looking at how we could embed our belief system around tribal sovereignty. And so we have a land acknowledgement statement, which the person who was in the tribal liaison position before, Michaela, helped us draft, and we worked with tribal leaders to have it be something that felt appropriate for us, you know, in inhabiting this land. And so we always start all of our meetings with this land acknowledgement of humility, that, you know, acknowledging that this land belongs to the territory of the people of the Salish Sea, that, you know, their presence is imbued in the waterways, shorelines, valleys, and mountains of the traditional homelands of the Coast Salish people since time immemorial. And at some point in time, you know, as you join us, that last piece of since time immemorial is really a significant piece of the land acknowledgement. But we start our board meetings in that way, all of our partner meetings in that way. We start our internal team meetings. If they're the first meeting of the day, we always start with that and try to figure out how we can continue to kind of build our knowledge around that. But in December of 2020, the board changed from that mission statement around improving health to this language that's here. And it really came out of the fact that we started in the fall of probably 2017 on what we have called a tribal and equity learning journey. And we included our board members in that. We included every partner that contracts with us. If you can imagine, since the fall of 2017, we have been meeting once a month to do a deeper dive around how it is that we do tribal and equity learning and embed that and intertwine it with all of the projects that we take on, trying to create kind of our own equity lens as we do this work. And so this is, what they said in December 2020 is, is North Sound ECH done? Because they really were thinking about three options. We can finish and close our doors. We can finish and close our doors when all the money runs out, or we try to figure out what exactly is our purpose in this landscape. And this was what they came up with, that we exist to advance this just and inclusive culture and the necessary conditions for community members to thrive. And since that decision in December 2020, it has really reshaped why we engage with the Healthcare Authority, why we engage with the Department of Health, why we engage around flood response. Everything is kind of driving from this reason for the ACH and our team to exist, kind of along with you and the work that you do. And so in the end of 2021, we got permission from our board to kind of turn things upside down from how we had been approaching our work. Our work had been designed by the federal government, by the states, by state agencies, and we had been taking on that work, kind of staying within their confines. And with the board's permission, we said in 2022, what we'd like to do is create this network. If we actually believe that we had strong partners over the last 4 years, and they were doing amazing work, they were sharing with us what they knew. What we wanted to do starting this year was to say, I wonder if we could actually ask our partners to shape the work and have us have, you all and others be driving, where should investment go? Where should we be actually kind of zeroing in and finding partners and collaborators to do the work? And that's what led to the launch of this network. We actually are seeing this as a place where whoever joins this network actually has assets, influence, and leadership, relationships that are going to make this region become the place that we think that it could be, but that it really takes all of us working together. And we had 4 years of, I'm going to say 65 clinical and community-based organizations who were in contract with us, but all of their relationships were them vis-a-vis the ACH. And what we are attempting to do starting this year is to have you all be in relationship with each other and how it is that we can find ways to facilitate that and help leverage that and help you grow like the great work and the great ideas that you have. Just so you know, I also told our board 2022 could be a big fail, but we had a lot of trust in the organizations that we learned from and learned about, that we actually just really feel confident that if we can get our legs under us, this is going to be a pretty interesting journey for us all to be on. So in this network, and I know that you all are used to looking at contracts of varying shades and degrees. Folks are used to getting a contract that says, you will hire these 2 staff, here's how much you will pay for them, you'll do this evaluation, and they're very prescribed agreements. And instead, what is in essence our Exhibit A to our standard contract language is a set of shared beliefs, principles, and commitments. And so these slides really are showing you what we are asking partners that want to be working with us, in contract with us, the things that folks are having to sign, that they are willing to, kind of incorporate these beliefs and share those within their own networks. And so these beliefs, I'm not going to read them out loud to you, but you can see that they really are talking about how do we get to equitable well-being, how do we actually just like recognize that we have inherited some legacies that have perpetuated the circumstances and the trauma and the exclusion that we experience today? And do we feel optimistic that we can actually create new legacies and try to create the North Sound region as a place where everyone who, you know, lives here, travels through here, feels like there's a place that they can belong? And you'll hear this probably multiple times, that we're talking about us being accountable to each other and thinking forward to future generations. So that, again, this isn't about you doing something for the ACH because we're in contract. In this contract, it's about us and how can we be working in collaboration and be accountable to each other. The principles, again, probably would be nothing that is a surprise, but I'm gonna like probably center on the last two. There are 29 federally recognized tribes in Washington, and 8 of those are in the North Sound region. They were a part of the founding of the organization. They have stayed engaged with the organization, and because they are sovereign nations, we are always feeling incredibly grateful and blessed by learning from them and seeing how it is that they operate and what their approaches are. And they have heavily influenced the design of our work, how we think about care coordination, how we think about intersections of different projects, and how we think about climate change and medical care, how we think about, you know, our food and our land. All of those things really have been heavily influenced by the tribes. The notion of targeted universalism, which, you know, may either be familiar or not familiar, but it is a framework that we adopted again back in 2017. And it came out of a need that Nicole Willis and I had gone through this 270-page agreement with the Healthcare Authority. And there were 5 objectives, and they were, you know, we're going to reduce the use of opioids. We're going to get better at behavioral health integration. We're going to get better at paying for care, you know, based on outcomes. And then there was this 5th objective that was, we're going to advance equity and reduce disparities. And throughout the last 5 years, we have had to report on a lot of things, but there was nothing in the federal agreement with the state and the state's agreement with us in any of the prescribed materials. There was nothing that held us accountable for how it is that we advanced equity. And so as a region, we decided that that was, again, going to just be one of our anchor strategies. And targeted universalism is something that allows you to identify a universal goal and then to come up with targeted strategies so that everyone within your community can actually reach that goal. So instead of doing a universal strategy, you have many strategies because you want everyone to get to that same place. And then belonging really comes out of some work that we've been doing for the last 4 years with the Othering and Belonging Institute that's based out at UC Berkeley. And it is one of the core components of what is another framework called the Vital Conditions for Wellbeing. And so you will just constantly hear things around targeted universalism and belonging and how we use those to try and address some of those historic systemic structural barriers that keep everyone in our community from getting to where we'd like them to be. I'm not going to read this to you, nor am I going to make you read it on the slide, but you can obviously have a copy of these slides. This is our theory of change. And so, you know, as an ACH, we see ourselves as conveners. We can convene people across counties. We can convene people across sectors. We've been asked to do some really interesting convening across issues that range from, there aren't any primary care providers on Whidbey Island who are accepting, you know, people on Medicaid, to, you know, how do we get food 3 miles down the freeway from one, you know, hotel to another here in Whatcom County during the flood response. And it's like, how do we navigate some of those in between spaces? And then the other pieces are really, I think, how we see how we can collectively be impacting and measuring the change that we want to see. And through the cohorts that you all will also be able to like leverage your convening ability, because we are, you know, as I often describe, kind of a network of networks. We all have relationships with different people, and how we can kind of build and leverage those relationships, I think, is going to be really critical. And so within this, and I have a visual that I'm going to jump to, So we have the Collaborative Action Network, everyone, individuals, organizations, and we identified 5 cohorts. And this information about the 5 cohorts came out of what those 65 partners that have been with us for the last 4+ years, they've had to do reporting for us, every 6 months or so. And they have told us, like, here's what's working, here's what's still not working, here's where we wish we could be doing things if we could only find the resources for them. And so Nika on our team really was like critical in trying to pull some of that information and to say, if we were going to organize some folks around some common themes, like what would those be? And there's information that's like a deeper dive in each of these areas. But what I'll tell you is that equity is the cohort that everyone is a part of who joins the network. It's our anchor strategy, so to speak. And we have things that we ask every partner to do as part of that equity cohort. The others are, they are for, not everybody is in every one. We have many organizations that are part of multiple cohorts. And so what we presented is there are 5 cohorts, and there are 3 possible levels of engagement for individuals and organizations. The first level is you just want to be like learning. You want to be doing some deeper learning. You want to engage. You want to find some possible advocacy, and you want to be like building relationship with others in the network. And then the second level is I actually want to do some design. I want to like figure out some strategies that we could implement within some of the areas within these cohorts. And the third is we have organizations who said, you know what, we've got capacity and the interest, and we want to lead one of these cohorts or co-lead the cohorts with your team. And we have people at, we call them level 1, 2, and 3. We have folks who are at level 1 in one cohort and a level 3 in another cohort. We've got folks who've selected 2 cohorts. We have folks who have selected all 5 cohorts at different levels, and just trying to create a way that we could somehow match your interest, your capacity, and your time, availability, so that you could find ways to connect in with these cohorts, however it was a good fit for you. And so within the cohorts, there's like each cohort is meeting and has just, I think almost all of them have had their first meeting. But that we're trying to then say within those cohorts, like, what are we trying to get to? And so they're all anchored around this notion of equitable well-being. But we're also looking for you to define like ways that you could collaborate with each other. And that includes across county lines and such. We want you to be able to not only influence the funds that the ACH has the ability to leverage, but for us to be able to look together to other investors and funders who are, I think ripe for doing some investment in the region, but they're always having to like choose and switch and try and figure out what they should be focused on. We are a region that has multiple foundations, and we'd love to find a way to also leverage them in this conversation so that they could be thinking about things more collaboratively. And so we've got a strategy around that. And then we are building what we refer to as a resource library. And that what we want to also find out from you, like if somebody wanted to know, like what's the best food or nutrition strategies, like what are your go-to websites? Where would you send them in terms of white papers? Like how do we actually build something so that a hospital system can understand why do we need an investment in housing or food? And apologies for Zoe there in the background. But just how it is that we can actually build some shared knowledge that you all are making recommendations, what should be in that knowledge base and continuously adding to it. Sorry, I'm going to mute for 1 second. I know you're all familiar with this lovely joy of dogs and kids and cats and stuff. All right. So this is kind of a visual of how we think about the network and the cohorts kind of within the network. that, really at its base, we have this belonging, inclusion, civic muscle, and looks like the bottom line's kind of dropped off on this view. But we've got the network, those commitments that folks agree to. Folks will select a cohort that they're interested in. We have a network meeting that is like one day every month where everyone in the network is engaged in that. And whether we're talking about care coordination or we're talking about the opioid crisis, the network meetings are always anchored in equity, tribal learning, anti-racism. We are trying to tie these things together. And then within 4 of the 5 cohorts, there's a second level of learning. So there might be a learning session that's just for folks who select the care coordination cohort, or in vital conditions where they're talking about humane housing and food and what does it mean to create meaningful wealth and work. There might be learning that's just really specific within each cohort. And, at the end of the day, we're really trying to get to all people and places thriving with no exceptions, nobody being left out. We're not trying to get to most, we are trying to get to all. And we realize that that is a huge lift, but the notion that we could do it together with partners and kind of in collaboration with others gives us hope, and I think some really great opportunities. So I'm going to skip this. This is like the monthly learning session that we do. We bring in national partners coupled with regional highlighting. So we will try, most of our meetings will have, somebody who's coming in nationally to talk about some best practices, to bring some information from a community that's similar to one of our communities. And then we'll bring somebody in from within the cohort to say, so like, here's what we're doing here, and here's some of the partnerships that have developed, and just really trying to bridge kind of that big open wide vision with what's happening here in the North Sound region. And we are going to keep our doors open for others to join the network. We're thinking now that we probably will do like an orientation every quarter, but people can come in at any time, and our monthly learning sessions are open to anyone. So you don't actually have to be a part of the network, but it is required of everyone who is in the network. I'm going to skip that. I'm going to skip that. And I'm going to skip that. I'm going to go to this. So we have a bit of a timeline, and, for those who know me, I'm going to say this and it'll maybe make you chuckle. I am like the most calm person, and I am incredibly impatient. And so those things are always kind of warring with each other. And so we have this timeline that starts with really this notion of, how do we form these groups? How do we get them to like learn about each other? How do we get to a level of understanding and discovery so everybody knows what each other are doing? But I want to get to a point where also these things are overlapping and we're still learning, but we're also influencing. And so North Sound ACH has, for example, some funds that we have the ability to leverage here in 2022. And you're going to feel some like momentum to develop ideas and see if we can actually formulate some things that should be in the regional portfolio of projects or initiatives. And there isn't like a deadline to that, like you must do this by, August 15th, but that door is going to open, and we're going to be continuously asking the cohorts and the members of the cohorts, tell us like your best ideas and your best thinking so that we can be a bit opportunistic as well as leveraging resources that we know that we have. We have for the last 4 years done a partner gathering in August. So everyone in the network has been asked to hold August 9, 10, 11. If we do it in person, it will actually be probably like a full day and a day and a half day. If we do it via Zoom, it'll be 3 half days, but we've just asked everybody to like hold those days till we know for sure that whether it's going to be in person or not. And it's really, I cannot tell you how much we're like wanting to be in concert with people again. But we see this continuing into our work in 2023 and beyond. And, that this idea that we don't have to set the terms but that we can learn and be influenced by our partners and people who actually are doing the work is a pretty significant pivot for us. And it's great to have our board support in doing that. So I'm going to end there, and I'm going to stop screen sharing and just see like what ideas pop up for any of you, whether it's questions for me, questions for the team, things that you're thinking about. I don't know. It's so quiet when Zoe gets quiet. It's weird. I probably should have mentioned this. So one of the other commitments that the ACH made is that anyone who joins the network in 2022, because we are in this very formative space, right, where we're asking you to like learn and design and kind of co-create these ideas with us. So depending on the number of cohorts and the level of engagement, we're actually paying folks for their time to be a part of this co-design and co-creation process. That's a part of the contract. And I know that you are all used to being a part of planning groups and work groups, et cetera, and giving of your time. We are wanting to assure that, we're asking a lot of partners here, and that you actually have the capacity to carve out the time to do this. And so we have a mechanism that once folks commit and we like say like, oh, you're at 2 2s and a 3, like we have the ability to then turn around and say, here's how we can then support you so that you can actually stay fully engaged in this process. Mike, I know you got to hear this like last night. So, and I may turn to you and then go to Lauren's question. Just like anything that is like kind of crept into your mind since our conversation.
Not so, just some of the mechanics of how does one go about signing up to like officially join the cohort, and are there people we can talk to at North Sound or part of the larger network to figure out where one might best, which one of those 5 cohort groups one might fit best into if we're not sure, if we're lacking confidence to assume where our skills and expertise can be best used. Yeah.
And the answer to like both aspects of that are yes. And Nika, to be honest, I can't remember if we have like the survey done that we would send to new partners that would like list some of the focus areas within each cohort.
We do, and I believe Bellingham Food Bank has already filled it out.
Well, there you go. Mike, you've already decided.
I'll put the link in the chat for those who haven't, but if you're unsure if you have or not, feel free to chat me privately and I can let you know.
Thank you. So, and Lauren, I think to your question, it's probably pretty similar. Know that the first cohort met on May 5th. And so they're just starting to meet this week. But, I'm going to probably invite the folks on my team who are leading the different cohorts. If you want to look at Lauren's question about, either specific progress examples or how somebody could understand how their organization might fit. I don't know if any of you want to jump in and I can stop talking for a minute. I guess since your box is still green, do you want to talk about like your cohort and some of the focus areas that are going on in there?
Sure. So in practice transformation, there are right now 4 proposed focus areas: oral health, reproductive health, substance use, and behavioral health integration. Because of the fact that Medicaid transformation, most of those were areas under Medicaid transformation. The practice transformation cohort's a little different than some others. The oral health work has been ongoing for some time through the Oral Health Local Impact Network, which is funded by our Cora Foundation. So that work is already ongoing. There's already been a lot of work around substance use that has started through the Regional Opioid Collaborative. And behavioral health integration. This year, we're actually focusing on a new assessment tool statewide that will replace the MEHAF and is going to replace, there's multiple integration assessment tools that have been used across different managed care organizations and smaller organizations. So it's one tool. So those ones are really specific, but there's a lot of room for other areas. Reproductive health, there hasn't been a lot of movement on that in the area. So that's something we're really excited about, hoping to get some more work done, thinking about sexual health. Pediatrics has also been something that people have talked about being interested in. So it's pretty wide open right now. We actually haven't had our first meeting. The first practice transformation meeting is this Thursday. So I don't have a solid answer because we haven't met yet, but those are kind of what we've been talking about with myself. And then we have two other organizations who are helping lead this work, Center for Human Services and Ideal Options. So, and I will stick that survey in the chat for folks.
Great, thank you. And so if we go from like the most tactical cohort, Heather, I'm going to maybe go to you around the vital conditions for well-being. Can you talk about some of the focus areas in your cohort?
Sure, yeah. Hey, everyone. So for vital conditions for well-being, so just kind of the umbrella, for those of you who aren't familiar with the vital conditions framework, it's sort of a more updated, comprehensive way of looking at social determinants of health. And so the three focus areas that have been proposed so far, they may shift, we may expand depending on partner interest, but they are food security, humane housing, and meaningful work and wealth. So Mike and food bank folks, I imagine you might be interested in the food security one. So yeah, we just had our first general meeting with everybody who signed up for that last week. So yeah.
And, you know, just as examples, like what comes out of those conversations in terms of where should we focus investment? Where do we need to do capacity building? I think that's the place that's really ripe and is going to depend on the partners who are at the table. And, you know, so that we're not trying to predict where those things will kind of go. Rocio, could you maybe go next and then Xenia?
Absolutely. Good afternoon. Buenas tardes. So I'm just coming from this general cohort meeting that we had at noon with a lot of our community partners. So I'm going to be the co-lead of the emerging focus areas, and we have three cohort areas where we're going to be focusing most of our efforts. Number one is the community perspective emergency response. We also have the youth emerging leadership engagement and rural access to care. And what I'm hearing from our community partners is that most of them want to focus on training, specifically when it comes to helping the community to be better prepared for when an emergency or natural disaster might happen. We really want to empower the community to have all the resources and the language that are required for them to plan you know, for their loved ones and make sure that they can survive an event like the flood that just happened back in November. In the youth emerging leadership engagement area, we want to really lift the youth. I want them to be part of the conversations about what's going on in the area, what programming is required for them to advance justice and also advance equity. In the rural access to care, we have a lot of a desire to bring mental health services to communities where they're not having a hospital or a clinic nearby. But again, we are not going to be dictating the work. We want that our community partners come to the table and they share their expertise, they share what they're seeing, what they're encountering when they're serving the communities, and they are the ones that shape the work and they focus on the initiatives that we want to prioritize. Thank you, Liz.
And I will say, so as the equity cohort lead, we've got 3 focus areas: racial justice, tribal indigenous learning, and measurable equitable well-being. At our first meeting, we really did a bit of a mini environmental scan or assessment. Just asked folks, what do we know? How do we define the language that we're using? How do you define racial justice in the work that you're doing? And then what do we know about what's already happening within these 3 focus areas under the equity kind of umbrella? What's already happening? What are some really amazing things that we should make sure that we're not forgetting exist and are ongoing in community? Who should be at the table? And then kind of what questions folks have. And so we took all of that information, and our next steps are to come together as a planning team and to kind of figure out, like, where do we go from here? We have a lot of rich data about things that folks are interested in, priority areas, as well as what's already happening and where we can leverage existing initiatives, programs, et cetera. So that's really where we have been focused.
Thanks, Zenia. And Rajdeep, close us up with care coordination. Our favorite topic.
Care coordination is a lot of fun, if I do say so myself, but I'm super biased. So yes, care coordination. We have 3 focus areas within our cohort, and they are Community Care Coordination Hub. The context of that focus area is the Community Care Coordination Hub will focus on expanding and the community-based hub and its organization that's under the organizations that are under its umbrella. We also have cross-sector care coordination, and the context of that focus area is that this specific focus area will be focused on diversion and transitions of care. So other programs in our community like GRACE, CHART are a couple, just to name them. And then we also, last but not least, we have Mobile Integrated Health, and that one is going to be focused on the implementation of community resources and paramedic programs and other MIH programs, so Mobile Integrated Health programs. Yeah.
Thank you. And, I think that part of the emphasis on care coordination, we're also, and this is where these things just overlap and intertwine, that we're really looking at a community-based workforce. And so it ties to some of our other cohort work that's looking at how do we invest in a community health worker, promotora, doulas, peer support specialists kind of workforce. And so you'll see things that kind of ebb and flow in between cohorts, and we're really trying to just see how we can elevate those issues, because we lose a lot of people when they go in one door and somebody tells them you should go to another organization, but they never get to that next door. And it makes sense to us because we understand how systems work. Doesn't always make sense to folks who are in need or folks who are in crisis. And that next door that we send them to might have an outdated website. It might not actually have anybody who's there because they're all working remotely, and just like how we navigate the information and the connectivity between and across programs, I think, is just something that we're really interested in as well. The process. So the survey, that some of you have completed and is just going to be open and available for others to keep coming in. For our first batch of partners, they actually had to sign the agreement before they got the survey. And so we were doing a couple of things simultaneously. For you all, because you don't have like 4 years of experience working with North Sound ACH, the survey was like the front door. Here's the kind of work and the kind of places that we're looking for partners. And if you are interested, then we would do what we hope results in a very simple contract. But, it would have, your typical boilerplate contract language. It would have an Exhibit A that says, here are the things that you're committing to, whether it's an individual or an organization. And Exhibit B would be the cohorts and the level of engagement that you've selected. And we would then say, and here's how we're going to pay you because of your commitments in those cohorts. We do a twice annual reporting cycle. So in October, we'd be expecting you to just like tell us like how things are going. And, you know, that's probably a really, really rough description of all the work that NICA puts into the twice yearly reporting. But our reporting is very much not onerous. We are trying to understand what can we do to help things get better. So we're not looking for widgets and numbers and data polls and those kinds of things. It's really about like what's working, what's not working, how can we help, you know, in kind of some of the systems level things. And so we will do the payment as soon as we have a contract in place. And really it's based on your commitments. And then at the end of the year, we'd be looking to see like who's actually been able to follow through on their commitments. And we will have a second kind of incentive payment for those folks who actually been able to follow through on their commitments. But the amount of the funds, et cetera, and how we're laying that out would all be in the Exhibit B of the contract. And then there's really nothing else. Like we're not asking you to commit to do a program, to actually carry out an initiative, because what's going to happen is the cohorts are going to start proposing some initiatives. And at that point in time, we're going to try and figure out, so which partners are interested in committing to this initiative or this project. And we're then going to distribute funds for folks who are going to do that implementation piece of the process. So we're really kind of doing this co-design, co-creation step first, and honoring your time by allowing you to know that you have some funds to support your engagement. And then we will do just a different process when it's time to fund the projects and initiatives that emerge out of all this work. So has everyone on this call like done a survey? Just out of curiosity.
Just the food bank, just Bellingham Food Bank.
Okay. You know, and again, you have no reason to trust me, but I'm going to say this anyway. There are no hidden tricks or anything in our contracts. We are trying to be as upfront at the front end as we can. What we have is this Medicaid waiver, just to go very geeky for a few seconds here. The last 5 years, the 9 ACHs across Washington state earned money by being a part of this Medicaid transformation project, which is really different than they contracted with us to do specific things and they paid us. And so because of its design, the money that came to the North Sound region was totally within the discretion of the ACH as to how we distributed those funds. The next 5 years, because the state is looking at applying for another 5-year waiver, we are probably not going to be as fortunate with that. And so 4 years ago, our board said, for all of the dollars that come to the North Sound region, we're going to take 10% of that and we're going to put it in a community resilience fund. And so we had the ability to earn up to, I'm going to say like 86 or $90 million, you know, for the region. Most of that has gone out to our partners. But it means that we have a fund that has about $9 million in it in our own community resilience fund. And so we are also looking for folks like you who are willing to help us figure out what to do with that community resilience fund. We're not asking that today, but we might be asking it in August during that August convening. Because in addition to the funds that we actually have here in 2022, we have the ability to start thinking forward. What do we want to do? How would we even define community resilience? Like, what are the things that need to be in place to actually get us to that notion of everyone is thriving, no one's being left behind. And it just has been a really interesting, and for me, a once in a career experience to intentionally be able to build a fund like that. And to have our board say, we're going to hold those funds until we have a group of community members who can help us decide what to do with those funds. And so I think that's also going to be a piece that comes out of this network, helping us define, what would a healthy North Sound region look like? And knowing that that might be different on Lopez Island than it is in Mount Vernon, than it is in Concrete or Darrington. And everyone has those different needs. And that's where that targeted universalism becomes really important to us. And an example, in 2017, some of my very first meetings were over in San Juan County. And, they were telling us, when the state does distribution of funds, it's always population per capita based. And so therefore what they get and what is expected of them, they are expected to do the same thing in their public health departments, but they get like 1/10 of the dollars that Skagit or Whatcom County would get. And so one of our baseline kind of sets when we were doing fund distribution is we have to make this work in San Juan County, because if it works in San Juan County, it'll work in Everett. But the inverse is not true, that everything that works in Everett may not work in San Juan County. And so it meant that when we were doing our very initial fund distribution, and we've carried it through to now, we will have like a base that we say, this is what's going to make this workable for every partner. And if we have to use a population distribution, we might do that on top, but it's never the base. So that we're just not saying, a county with 17,000 people, they're not ever going to get as much money as a county with 200,000 people, or Snohomish with 800,000+ people. And so trying to figure out for any partner, what does it take to make this real, so that you can actually have the staff person to actually do the thing that you are committing to do. It's been a piece of us using targeted universalism, even in our contracting and our fund distribution. And it's been just really fascinating. Every day we find like a new place to use those strategies. And we're just hoping that you will join us. I mean, I guess at the end of the day, that's our hope out of this. Max, any questions come to mind for you? I know you've been on 1,000 phone calls with us since the middle of November, but
I'm very well spent, thank you. In most instances, certainly anytime with you, well spent. Not always. I did have a question, particularly in light of Eva is joining us, and Eva, as she mentioned, is a representative of Food Lifeline based in King County, but doing work all throughout Puget Sound. And I think that the same question touches on some of the other examples that we heard referenced this afternoon. Can you talk a little bit about the vision that you have for these 5 cohorts and the intersections in terms of geographic impact that you're hoping to have with organizations that may feel affiliated with some of the examples mentioned in these areas, but also do work in other places?
Yeah, it's a great question. And, we certainly have partners that where 100% of their work is not in the North Sound, and I can pick Peace Health and Providence, as like the largest examples, but, some of the behavioral health providers across the state, and, Catholic Community Services operates in different regions. How we've been thinking about it, I can only answer how we think about it today. And seriously, you might be able to influence how we think about it tomorrow. I think it's anyone who's actually wanting to make an influence on what's happening in this region, whether they themselves are based in this region or not, and they're willing to commit to those commitments that we have in what we're calling Exhibit A. I would think the door is open, but know that we talk internally about when does Liz use her CEO voice and when is she using just her brainstorming voice. That is Liz's brainstorming voice. I don't want to close the door. And, I think it's really who's willing to leverage resources to get to the end that we're trying to reach. And we may be thinking narrowly when every one of you might make us think more broadly about this work and who's engaged. And I go back to, you may know of folks within your network that I don't have a line of sight to. You know, Alex may have a network that I don't see. And so it's really, how do we find those ways to, I think in terms of like neural mapping, seriously, which is scary, but like every one of us has a network of folks that we know about that we can leverage. And imagine if we could actually like leverage all of those networks to an end where, you know, whether it's about hunger or nutrition or culturally appropriate food availability, you know, I think of like what's happening around baby formula. Like there's just like things that pop up every day that we are not thinking about how they impact all communities. We're thinking about how it impacts the aisle at the grocery store. And none of what happens as we trickle out to our networks of networks. And, you know, just, I think our vision is a grand vision. We're going to make those connections so that everyone within the network knows who else they can turn to and leverage when they need to see something change, and that none of us are feeling isolated from others that are committed to the same end. And I'm going to pause and see if anybody on my team wants to add anything to that, but you know, that's my first reaction. Max. Alex, were you going to jump in? I follow the green box. So your box is green right now.
Oh. Not sure why. I guess the only thing I could add is just kind of bringing a little bit more clarity on my end as far as like knowing how I could potentially present, you know, to my ED about what it would look like being part of something like this, right? So just kind of really truly understanding how there would be connections with the work that you guys are trying to do. You know, it sounds really interesting and very inspiring. So I just want to make sure I really understand more of it, you know, so I can better explain it.
Yeah.
It's very broad, but at the same time, it's very intentional.
And know that if you have an internal meeting or a board meeting or something, you know, there are like 6 of us that could come out and, you know, talk about this in the specifics of, you know, the range of work that you all are engaged in. Because I know it's kind of hard to take any of this and translate it to, but my work is focused on X. So we are happy to come out and continue that conversation with any of you. Because it really, it's the beginning of a relationship. And for those that we have relationship with, it's a bit of a jump start. And for others, you know, we're kind of trying to see like, where is that fit? And, you know, we'd love to have somebody from our team, if, you know, if that's appropriate or an option, come out and have that deeper conversation with you all.
Yeah, that would be very, very helpful.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. I've kept you a minute longer than you committed to, so I'm going to let you all go. We use kind of a global email box at the team at northsoundech.org. So if you have any questions, you know, just send it there and we route it to whoever is the best person to answer it. And, you know, we'd love to see you all and just continue to, I don't know, broaden and deepen who's at the table in these conversations. It would be pretty incredible. So thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Take care.
Bye, everyone. Thanks,
Thank
Liz.
you, Liz. Bye.
Bye-bye.